Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Ben. I'm very excited today because today is the day that I am going through my tiered list, my rankings for the greatest, most impactful Charlotte Hornets players ever. So let me get this out of the way first, a little caveat. I'm only specifically talking about players who played in Charlotte. So those guys that played over there in New Orleans, you know, the team that left Charlotte to go to New Orleans, they don't count. Now there are some guys on this list that started out in Charlotte and moved to New Orleans. That wasn't their fault, but I'm not including players who only played for New Orleans. I'm including players who played for Charlotte, either the Bobcats or the Hornets specifically. So the four-tiered system that I'm going to be placing players into: at the top, legends, then heroes, game changers, and then simply great. But I'm also going to be going through the players in order based on my individual ratings. So I came up with this little 5-star rating system. It's weighted based on talent and impact. So let me explain what I mean by impact. Hornets lore, where do they factor in there? The impact on the organization that they had during their time here. Longevity with the team, and impact on overall team performance. Coming up next on our list in the Game Changers tier, we have Kendall Gill. If you never got to watch Kendall Gill play, he was awesome. I gave him 3.5 stars for talent, 2.5 stars for impact, 6 overall. Kendall Gill was a 6'5" guard. The two words I would use to best describe Kendall Gill are well-rounded. Amazing athlete. He participated in the dunk contest his rookie season. Really versatile scorer, could rebound, facilitate, and was a good defender. This is really impressive. Despite only playing 3 full seasons with the Hornets, he's the only player in franchise history with at least 4,000 points, 1,000 rebounds, 1,000 assists, and 300 steals. He ranks 8th in Hornets history in 2-point field goals made, 8th in total steals, and 7th in steals per game. So a really good defender. Kendall Gill was the 5th overall pick in the 1990 NBA draft. He was a key part of the 1993 Hornets team at the height of their popularity, who made the playoffs for the first time in franchise history. In 1993, he was eventually traded to the Seattle Supersonics, played there for a couple years. He had a very short-lived second stint with the Hornets when he was traded back to Charlotte prior to the 95-96 season. Crazy. And halfway through that season, he was traded again to the New Jersey Nets, where he had some good years as well. Only played for the Hornets for 3 years, but Kendall Gill definitely had an impact, key piece to some really good Hornets teams in the early 90s for sure. Coming in at number 13, Al Jefferson. Big Al, and I mean big. 6'10", 290 pounds. Absolutely dominant big man in the post. Extremely crafty, old school. I mean, he had all the moves. If you've never watched Al Jefferson play, definitely go look up some highlights. Talent, I gave him 4 stars. Impact, 3 stars. 7 stars overall. He ranks 9th in points per game for the Hornets all time at 17.5. 6th in rebounds per game at 8.9. 2013-14, he averaged 22 per game and made All-NBA third team. He was a big part of the Bobcats squad that finished 6th in the East and made the playoffs. He was drafted actually by the Boston Celtics in 2004, 15th overall. He played there for 3 years, played with the Timberwolves for 3 years, played with the Jazz for 3 years, and then signed in Charlotte as a free agent. You know, he only played in Charlotte for 3 seasons, but definitely made a pretty big impact when he was here, and was a key part of a couple pretty decent Bobcats playoff teams. So Al Jefferson coming in at number 13. Number 12. And this is where there might be some controversy. I understand. I do have a handful of current Charlotte Hornets players on this list. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, but this is the first of 3 current Charlotte Hornets players on my list. So coming in at number 12 in the Game Changers category, Gordon Hayward. Talent, 4.5 stars. Impact, 2.5. Overall, 7 stars. 6'7" forward. As I mentioned, the first of 3 current Hornets players on this list. But I want to remind you that these rankings are based on impact and talent. And the truth is, Gordon Hayward, he's only played 1 full season for the Hornets, but he's a great player. He is a really great player. And no, the Hornets didn't make the playoffs last year, but they were in 4th place when he and LaMelo got injured, and I really think that they would have made the playoffs if that wouldn't have happened. And Gordon Hayward would have been a big reason for that. He's a great scorer, great shooter. The thing about Gordon Hayward is he's not necessarily going to blow you away with his athleticism or, like a flashy game, but he's consistent. He's really smart, he's really savvy. Not the best defender on the planet, but he's pretty solid there. He doesn't have a ton of weaknesses to his game. And, when it comes down to it, I think he's just a winning basketball player. I think he's a great veteran presence and influence on this Hornets team, especially how young the team is overall. He averaged 19.6 points per game, 6 rebounds, 4 assists last season. I mean, he was a borderline all-star. But that 19.6 points per game actually slots him in at 6th in Hornets history in points per game, and he's 6th in Hornets history in 3-point field goal percentage at 41.5. He was, of course, drafted by the Utah Jazz, 9th overall. Had some great years there, a couple years in Boston. Had that just awful ankle injury that no one ever wants to see again. But he's battled back from that. And, late 2020, of course, the Hornets followed up drafting Melo Ball with acquiring Hayward, who was one of the bigger names on the free agent market. They acquired him in a sign-and trade with the Celtics. He opted out of that $34 million player option with Boston and had a lot of different suitors, but he chose Charlotte. That's the big takeaway here. He chose Charlotte. Why is that big? Why is that important? For one, a little backstory, a lot of people may not know this, but 6 years previously, when he was a free agent, the Hornets actually offered him a contract. And he signed an offer sheet with the Hornets, but the Utah Jazz matched it, so he ultimately stayed with them. Gordon Hayward stated that the commitment that Michael Jordan and the Hornets showed him all those years ago when they signed him to an offer sheet was one of the factors in him deciding to come to Charlotte this time. But again, back to why is it important? Why is it impactful that Gordon Hayward chose Charlotte? Well, he's probably the biggest name free agent-wise that the Hornets have ever signed. And, Charlotte being a small market, they've historically had to rely on the draft or trades to acquire big names. But I think the signing of Gordon Hayward kind of represents a changing of the tide in Charlotte. So, along with some of the other players we've acquired or drafted over the last 2-3 years, Hayward is a big part of a group of players who, including LaMelo and Rozier and Bridges and Washington, a big part of this group of players that I think is changing the future and outlook of the Hornets. And he represents, like I said, sort of a changing in the tide with him being such a big name free agent and choosing to come to Charlotte. Hopefully he's not the last. Hopefully there's more to come. And I think there will be. But yeah, Gordon Hayward coming in at number 12 on my list. Number 11, and this is the final player in my Game Changers tier. Again, this one might be a little controversial, but it's fine. I'm not mad at it. Scary Terry. Terry Rozier, baby. Talent, 4.5 stars. Impact, 2.5 stars. Overall, 7 stars. He's a 6'1 guard, obviously the second current Charlotte Hornet on this list. He's a great all-around player, fantastic shooter, has really improved his shooting over the years, good passer, extremely clutch. He's got that clutch gene for sure. He's a dog, man. I just love the attitude, passion that he plays with. He's a leader on this Hornets team. He's made a huge impact in the 2 seasons that he's been here. Currently, he ranks 7th in 3-point field goals made. After just 2 seasons, he ranks 7th in 3-point field goals made for the Hornets. 7th in Hornets history in points per game at 19.2. He was, of course, picked 16th overall by the Celtics in 2015. The 2017-2018 season, if you remember, was really when he had his first opportunity to showcase his talents on the big stage for the Celtics. Kyrie Irving was injured, and Rozier came in into that starting point guard role and really was probably the Celtics' best player during those playoffs. The following year, Kyrie Irving came back in, reclaimed his starting role, and Rozier was relegated back to the bench. And thankfully for us, we lost Kemba, but in that same deal, we acquired Terry Rozier in a sign-and trade. And to me, his first 2 years in Charlotte, he has been inarguably awesome. He has more than proven to me that he deserves to be a starter in this league. I could see him becoming an all-star, maybe even this season, but at some point in the near future, I could see him becoming an all-star, and I definitely think he earned that recent contract extension that the Hornets gave him. He averaged 18, 4 and 4 his first season here, 24 and 4 last year, and statistically, Scary Terry, he is one of the most clutch players in the NBA. I mean, in clutch time, Scary Terry emerges. At one point last season, this was pretty interesting. During clutch time, which technically means games within 5 points with 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, he was shooting 55% from the field, 57% from three, and 90% from the free throw line at one point last season. I mean, he's one of the best clutch players in the NBA. And like I said, impact-wise, he's been a big part of the Hornets' renaissance the last couple of years, and I think it's going to be a big part of our growth and the direction of this team over the next few years as well. So I think he's deserving of being on this list. So that wraps up my Game Changers tier. Coming up next, Heroes. So now we're getting into the top 10. And coming in at number 10, we have Crash, Gerald Wallace. 6'7" forward, played in Charlotte for 8 seasons, all for the Bobcats. Really unique player. Made an all-star team, made all-NBA defensive first team with the Bobcats. An uber athlete, and he played with such passion, and a lot of people say like a reckless abandon, like hence the nickname Crash. He just did not care about his body. He did not care about getting hurt, which I loved. It was so much fun to watch. Very versatile, could do a bit of everything, really good defender. The list I'm about to go through is just so impressive. He ranks 2nd in Charlotte history in total steals, 3rd in total rebounds, 3rd in total points, 3rd in steals per game, 4th in total blocks, 4th in minutes played, 4th in field goals made, and 6th in games played. The dude is just all over the record books for the Hornets/Bobcats. He was drafted 25th overall back in 2001 by the Kings. Didn't get a ton of playing time there, and then was selected by the Bobcats in that 2004 expansion draft. 2010 was probably his best year. Wallace made the All-Star team and was named to the NBA All-Defensive First Team that year. And this is really interesting and impressive right here. Gerald Wallace is one of 3 players in NBA history to average at least 2 steals and 2 blocks per game over the course of an entire season. The only other 2 players in NBA history to average 2 steals and 2 blocks per game over the course of an entire season, David Robinson, Hakeem Olajuwon. So that list is a short one. David Robinson, Hakeem Olajuwon, and Gerald Wallace. Just a very unique player, had a huge impact on the Bobcats, on Charlotte, on the organization as a whole when he was here. So definitely deserving of being in this Heroes tier, in my opinion, and in the top 10 players in Charlotte history. All right, controversial. I say that word again because this may be a stretch for some of you, but I don't think it is. And eventually, he's probably going to be higher on this list. Melo Ball. Talent, 5 stars. He's at the top. Impact, 3 stars. I know he's only been with us for 1 season. Let me explain. 6'6" point guard, the highest ranked current Hornets player on this list. The fact that I put Melo this high, considering all the great players that have played for the Hornets, it definitely says a lot. Some of you might think it's a stretch. Listen, the reason I put LaMelo this high is he is a once-in-a-generation talent. Arguably, he's already, after 1 season and being 20 years old, he's already one of the best point guards in the NBA. Already one of the best distributors in the NBA. The impact that he's had already on the city of Charlotte, on the Hornets organization, is inarguable. And that's after just 1 year. You know, he's one of those rare players, I think, that comes along and just changes the entire outlook of a franchise. You know, he has the talent to, if he stays in Charlotte long enough, he has the talent to eventually be considered one of the best Hornets players to ever suit up. You know, he's not there yet, he's got a long way to go, but he has that sort of talent. Back to the impact, you know, the only other athletes that come to mind when you talk about athletes that have come to a professional sports team in Charlotte that have had the level of impact that LaMelo has had so far, well, there's two. Cam Newton with the Carolina Panthers and Larry Johnson with the Charlotte Hornets back in the early 90s. That's it. I mean, that's two pretty special names. But that's sort of the stratosphere that LaMelo Ball is in already at this point. He's so talented, you know, great size for a point guard at 6'6", amazing distributor, good finisher around the rim, decent shooter, a bit streaky, but you know, that's gonna improve over time. He can make threes, he can make shots for sure, he's just kind of streaky. He's got the tools, he's got all the physical tools to be a great defender, and I think he will be. His first season with the Hornets, almost 16 points per game, 6 assists per game, which, by the way, would put him 5th all-time in Charlotte Hornets history, 6.1 assists per game, and almost 6 rebounds per game. He, of course, started his rookie year coming off the bench and played well, but once he was put in that starting lineup, it was he was off and running. It was an impressive rookie season, of course, Rookie of the Year, and yeah, Melo Ball, I think, is already one of the best Hornets players ever when you combine his talent with the impact that he's had already and the impact he's going to continue to have over the next few years. All right, coming in at number 8, B. Diddy, Baron Davis. Talent, 4.5 stars. Impact, 3.5 stars. Overall, 8 stars. Baron Davis, a 6'3" guard, great scorer and distributor. He had a lot of sauce to his game. High flyer, very athletic and explosive. Led the NBA in steals a couple times. 2-time All-Star, made the All-NBA third team. You know, he ranks 3rd all-time for the Hornets in assists per game, 4th in steals per game. He came to the Hornets in the draft, selected 3rd overall in the 1999 draft. The Hornets were good when Baron Davis was on this team. I mean, while he was with the Hornets, they made the playoffs 3 straight years in Charlotte. And by the way, again, I'm not talking about New Orleans, but worth it to say that they also made the playoffs both years that he was in New Orleans. So, you know, Baron Davis, along with another great player who we're going to talk about, key part of that 2001 Hornets team that made it further in the playoffs than any other Hornets team. That 2001 team, they won 46 games, made it all the way to the Eastern Conference semifinals. Actually, at one point, won 3 games in a row against the Milwaukee Bucks in the Eastern Conference semifinals, but then ended up losing 2 in a row and got eliminated. He was eventually traded to the Golden State Warriors after a couple years in New Orleans, but really good player for the Hornets, very popular player with fans. I loved him as a player, really exciting to watch. So Baron Davis coming in at number 8. Coming in at number 7, this is the last player in our heroes column, somebody who I think is really underrated and not talked about a ton when you talk about some of the great players in the early 2000s. What up? Ha! Didn't see you there. Hey guys, so that's going to do it for part number 2 in our greatest, most impactful Hornets/Bobcats ever. In part 3, we're going to be finishing out the heroes tier, and we're saving the best for last. Hornets legends. It's going to be so cool. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you watched all the way to this point. I really appreciate it. Do me a favor, like and subscribe. Why don't you hop on over to part number 3? I'll see you there.